This election is going to be one of the closest in history. Your vote will make the difference. Last time, only a few thousand votes kept Trump out of office. And this time, we will hold you personally responsible.
Hollywood is back at it again, and this time, it's Will Ferrell making a spectacle of himself in ways no one saw coming. The guy who built his empire on slapstick humor and ridiculous characters has now thrown himself into the political arena. And let's just say, big mistake. Instead of playing to his strengths, Ferrell decided he was the man to bring some progress to America, standing on a soapbox for all to see. But what did he actually accomplish? Well, let's just say the internet has never cringed harder. A comedian who once made us laugh until we cried has now turned himself into a parody. And not the funny kind, the kind where you're embarrassed for him. His latest stunt? Marching out into the streets like some political savior, championing a cause that no one asked him to. Standing alongside another clueless celebrity, he proudly declared their support for Kamala Harris, as if that was the grand statement America had been waiting for. As if two aging, rich white men yelling political slogans was the peak of activism. The internet collectively rolled its eyes so hard you could probably hear it from space. It's actually incredible how out of touch Hollywood elites are, and Will Ferrell is proving it in real time. Here's a guy who spent his entire career making fun of ridiculous characters, only to become one himself. He genuinely thought that flashing his million-dollar smile and screaming his political allegiance would make people rally behind him. Instead, people are laughing, but for all the wrong reasons. It's like watching a car wreck in slow motion. You don't want to stare, but you just can't help it. And the meltdown didn't stop there. Ferrell's public tantrum spiraled into full-blown hysteria when he realized that, shocker, the average American doesn't care what a Hollywood millionaire thinks about politics. It's almost as if people are tired of being lectured by the same celebrities who sip imported water while telling regular folks how to vote. Who would have thought? Certainly not him, who looked completely baffled when his grandstanding didn't translate into applause. The irony here is almost poetic. A man who once played lovable buffoons has turned into one himself. The more he tried to sound serious, the funnier he became, but not in a good way. It's the kind of humor that makes you uncomfortable, like watching an uncle get too drunk at Thanksgiving and start yelling about the good old days. The self-awareness? Absolutely non-existent. Hollywood's moral crusaders never learn, do they? They prance around spewing self-righteous nonsense, thinking they're the voice of the people. Meanwhile, the actual people are rolling their eyes and muttering, "Here we go again." His miscalculation is just another entry in the long list of celebrities who thought their fame made them political profits. It never ends well. The public doesn't want their favorite comedians turning into angry pundits. They want to laugh, to escape, not to be scolded by someone whose biggest challenge in life is choosing between an oceanfront mansion in Malibu or the Hamptons. But he isn't taking the hint. Instead of backing down gracefully, he's doubling down, flailing desperately in the spotlight as the backlash grows. Every time he speaks, it's like watching someone dig a deeper hole, refusing to admit they've already hit rock bottom. The funniest part? He actually thought people would cheer him on. Instead, they're handing him the L and moving on. And what's next for him? A redemption arc? A heartfelt apology? Unlikely. Hollywood types never admit when they're wrong. They just pivot, pretend it never happened, and hope the next big story buries their embarrassment dot. But the internet never forgets. His meltdown will live on in viral clips, screenshots, and memes for years to come. His greatest joke is now himself. He spent decades crafting a career making fun of absurdity, only to step into the real world and become its latest laughingstock. Maybe, just maybe, it's time for Hollywood to take a step back and do some real soul-searching. But let's be honest, that's never going to happen. His problem? He bought into his own hype. Instead of sticking to comedy, he started believing he was some kind of thought leader, a wise sage who needed to enlighten the masses. And what did he do with this newfound self-importance? He dove headfirst into politics, thinking people wanted to hear his opinions as much as they wanted to see him prance around in an elf costume. Spoiler alert, they didn't. His attempt at political activism came off as desperate and out of touch, and the backlash was swift. Let's take a step back to when he was actually funny. Remember *Anchorman*? He was brilliant as Ron Burgundy, a self-absorbed buffoon who was hilarious because he had no idea how ridiculous he was. Asterisk elf asterisk turned him into a Christmas icon, a goofy man-child in tights who somehow captured the holiday spirit perfectly. His asterisk SNL asterisk sketches? Pure gold. Whether he was lampooning clueless dads or making fun of George W. Bush, he managed to be sharp without being insufferable. But something changed. He went from making fun of politicians to thinking he was one. And that's where everything went south. The shift started subtly, but by 2020 it was impossible to ignore. He wasn't just hinting at his politics, he was shoving them in everyone's face. His campaign ads, like that cringeworthy one with a fake voter named Gary, were the stuff of secondhand embarrassment. The humor was forced, the message was heavy-handed, and worst of all, it wasn't funny. Instead of inspiring, it became fuel for internet mockery. The memes flooded in, with fans and critics alike wondering what had happened to the man who once made them laugh. And then came the public appearances, each one more bizarre than the last. That courtside basketball game, he looked like a disheveled mess, cigarette dangling from his lips, a vacant stare in his eyes. This wasn't the confident comedian audiences fell in love with. This was a man who looked like he had lost a bet with his own ego. Whispers grew louder. Was he okay? Had he cracked under the weight of his own self-importance? Or had he simply lost touch with what made him great in the first place? His downfall is more than just an individual failure. It's a sign of a larger shift in culture. The days when celebrities could lecture the public and expect applause are over. The internet has made sure of that. People don't want moral grandstanding from comedians. They want laughs. He isn't the only one who has fallen into this trap. Hollywood has been riding this high horse for years, convinced that fame equals wisdom. But in the age of instant backlash, that illusion is crumbling. The truth is, he was at his best when he was just being funny. Not when he was trying to be profound, not when he was trying to save democracy with painfully awkward political skits. About him becoming the punchline, if there's one lesson to take from all this, it's that comedy and politics don't always mix. When he was just making people laugh, he didn't need to tell them what to think. He just needed to entertain. But the moment he lost sight of that, his career started heading straight for the gutter. So what now? Maybe he'll try to claw his way back with another ridiculous character, hoping nostalgia will save him. Maybe he'll double down, start a podcast and spend his days ranting about the state of America. Or maybe, just maybe, he'll do the one thing he should have done all along, laugh at himself. Because if this whole debacle has proven anything, it's that the internet never forgets. And it's rarely kind. Worked because it was silly, over the top, and unapologetically ridiculous. It wasn't about proving a point, it was about pure, unfiltered fun. But somewhere along the way, he swapped out the cowbell for a soapbox, and the results have been less than hilarious. The greats, Lenny Bruce, Richard Pryor, George Carlin, knew how to cut through hypocrisy with sharp wit, not sanctimony. They didn't lecture, they exposed absurdity. But today's comedians are expected to pick a side, rally a cause, and declare their allegiance. Ferrell, the king of ridiculous, has wandered into this mess like a blindfolded man into a bar fight. And let's just say, he's not faring well. So where does that leave him? A once beloved comedian now stuck in a self-inflicted spiral, trying to be something the audience never asked for. Maybe he'll find his way back to what made him great. Maybe he won't. But if there's one lesson in all of this, it's that comedy thrives on authenticity, not self-importance. The internet won't forget, and the memes will live on. But the question remains, will he laugh along with us, or keep shouting into the void, wondering where it all went wrong? Only time will tell.